Hey, what is going on, guys? I am Seznate, and this is the Seznate YouTube channel. We're here for a special episode, not your previously scheduled Seznate episode that I had prepared. No, this is a special rescheduling urgent bulletin Seznate episode, completely unprepared. I just hit the record button and we are here. I cleared my desk off. We're ready to roll. So I'm sure you saw the news. I'm sure you've seen the news. Trump has said he's going to reschedule. And finally today, he said, let's reschedule cannabis. So I want to go through what I think that means, what that means for me, what it means for the greater cannabis community, the scary potentialities, the most likely potentialities. So let's start with just immediately right now. Trump has not rescheduled cannabis. Trump has sent an executive order, which in general is fucking bullshit, down the line to reschedule cannabis. So he's directed the officials below him that control their departments somewhat on their own, not directly in his control, but that's come up, in front of the Supreme Court in the last couple of years. He's directed them to reschedule cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. So, first off, he's not rescheduling it. There's a long road of hearings, potential court cases. I don't know all the different checks and balances that have to be checked and balanced in order to get this thing all the way through to the finish line. It's probably a quicker process with Trump and president than others, I would guess. However, I'm guessing there's going to be several Christian right groups that sue to stop this. I don't know how far that'll get. Who knows? But it's probably a process from here. We'll see. Let's assume cannabis is rescheduled, though, and relatively quickly. What does that mean? For cannabis businesses and for people like me, it means the immediate tax relief from 280E. So 280E is a brutal tax structure for Schedule 3 drugs, basically for drug dealers only, not for human traffickers or people running illegal gambling halls. They can deduct anything they want like a normal business when they pay taxes, which is crazy. Cannabis business cannot because they sell a Schedule 3 drug. That means we can't deduct legal fees. We can't deduct marketing expenses. We can't deduct salaries of HR staff, administrative staff. So we get banged on the tax side. You can actually lose money as a startup and then still owe taxes. That's the brutal reality of Canada. So we're going to be free from that structure. And we'll actually be able to refile our taxes from previous years to get tax money back. That's a huge lift off my shoulders personally, huge lift off a lot of cannabis companies that basically run at a break even or just paying taxes every year. It's gonna offer a lot of competitive relief to companies operating on razor thin margins who can now invest in, higher tier staff, more innovation, more R&D, more marketing. There's gonna be some more muscle out there in the market. Additionally, it's probably going to free up some capital into the capital market. You saw stock prices went up of cannabis companies. There's going to be more private money coming in. It's going to be easier to get investment. That's going to add more muscle into the market. There's going to be ammo out there, marketing money to spend. There's going to be smart people coming into the business. There's going to be people trying to gobble up cheap assets and trying to make another run at cannabis, baby. So I could see another mini green rush coming because this really does turn the financial mechanics of the business on its head. Like for our product personally, we see between 40% and 20% increases in profit after tax when 280E is lifted. Huge change financially, like a massive change. And it also means that if we want to go into startup mode and run at a break even for a few years, we actually run at a break even. We don't owe taxes when we're breaking even. So huge change. immediately, no change. It has to actually be rescheduled. But if that happens, there's some really big financial changes, mostly involving the tax side. Now, the question is, at least in my mind, and feel free to comment, hit me up. There's smarter people more involved with the FDA, the DEA, how this whole process works than me. But the way I see it is, last time this went down, there was almost a little fight between the DEA and the FDA about who kind of gets the final say. And it wasn't really clear then who got it. And it seems like it's the DEA, but it's the FDA after that to enforce it. Who knows? But what it looks like is at some point, someone's going to have to rubber stamp FDA, DEA in conjunction with each other and say this is now a Schedule 3 drug or a Schedule 3 substance. So from that point, now what does it mean? There's a lot of theories on this. There's a lot of boogeyman talk about you're going to only be able to buy weed in a pharmacy. If you want to sell weed, you're going to need a pharmacist on staff. You're going to need special licensing through the DEA. I don't think any of that's true. Now, what it comes down to is this. A drug is only a drug if you make a claim about the drug. So aspirin is harvested from willow trees. I can sell willow trees. They're not a drug. They're not regulated. It's maybe a supplement if I sold willow bark, right? Now, if I sold that willow bark and I said, this will cure your headache, make a tea from this, it'll cure your headache. Now I'm selling a drug. I've made a claim. I'm gonna be under FDA scrutiny. I'm under FDA scrutiny selling a supplement, but it's way less scrutiny. You basically just have to follow rules and you won't get messed with unless you don't. But if you do, they can mess with you. Selling a drug, you have to go through clinical trials, a lot of different things to get approvals to actually get clearance to sell the drug. You don't need clearance to sell a supplement. So what it looks like to me is right now we're selling willow bark. Cannabis is willow bark. We sell weed, we say, hey, weed's good, buy it, right? If we said, hey, this weed will help you sleep better, this weed will help you lose weight, which I'm seeing with people with THCV, which is insane, but then it becomes a drug. Now, the interesting part where there's a diversion that I honestly don't understand fully is that most supplements aren't a controlled substance. So like, if I want to, sell creatine, right? I can buy bulk creatine, I can put it into pills or put it into a gummy, I can sell creatine. It's not a controlled substance. And the same pathway is true where if I don't say anything about there's no medical claim with the creatine, then it's a supplement. But if I do make a medical claim, it's a drug, right? And so that's all well and good, but now the thing is a controlled substance. It's a Schedule 3 controlled substance. So is there an example of a Schedule 3 controlled substance that's sold as a supplement openly on the free market? I'm not sure about that. But I think that's kind of what it's going to come down to is cannabis going to be treated like a supplement in states by the FDA, DEA, right? Like, because don't get it wrong, even if cannabis is rescheduled, selling recreational cannabis is still illegal. There's still, the rescheduling is one piece. Then there's a bunch of laws behind that need to get rewritten. The criminal law needs to get rewritten to not criminalize the sale of cannabis outside of this system, right? So the state markets are still going to be operating outside of scheduled cannabis. And so the boogeyman argument, the worst case scenario is that the feds say, look, now that it's scheduled, now that it's not Schedule 1 and it's under federal scrutiny, if you're not doing it, we're going to start enforcing. We're going to start raiding all these places that are selling a controlled substance that has a federal pathway to do it, but you're not following that pathway. And the question is, though, we're selling it. I sell pre-rolls. I sell weed within dispensaries. Am I selling a supplement that shouldn't be under scrutiny? of this system over here? Or because it's a controlled substance, it doesn't matter if it's a supplement or a drug. There's going to be increased scrutiny on it, and we're going to want to push everything into this market, right? This sequestered market. That's the fear, is that, okay, now the big money's going to come in. Pharmaceutical companies, tobacco companies are gonna try to use regulatory capture to force the closure of state operations, so large entities who can afford to integrate in the federal infrastructure can take over. I don't think that's going to happen. A couple of reasons. I do think cannabis is basically a supplement. It's going to be treated as such unless you're making drug claims. This is just going to open pathways into the drug pharmaceutical world to sell CBN, CBD, THC derivatives that are backed by clinical trials and can make claims and can be sold. It's a good thing. Safe dosages, people with epilepsy, kids who are doing RSO, these sort of things. I think we're going to make a big jump there. The state markets are so entrenched, and they're printing cash for the feds right now. And once they take away 280E and this spreads to more states, there's a huge tax win for the feds here. They're not just gonna give that up, and they're not gonna say, hey, all you people who are doing buying in the black market, buying in the rec market, buying in the red market, you all have to wait fucking 10 years and buy pills. And in the meantime, we're just gonna hammer cannabis and arrest everyone too, and push you guys to the black market. It's like the pushback from the states seems too great. Like, keep in mind, the MAGA movement is all about states' rights. So if the states say we're going to sell cannabis as a supplement under our regulatory guidelines, and here's this federal way it's sold in Walgreens, right? I don't think those things are going to contradict. And the opposite side of that is, like, are states like Indiana going to say, I don't care that it's been rescheduled, we're still not legalizing this shit. It's still states' rights issue. And just like some states want to make abortion illegal, or some states going to say, no, we're not bringing cannabis into our state. I think it's very likely. So the next stage after rescheduling to Schedule 3 that would need to occur for real business to take over. Like I said, there's this criminal code that needs to be rewritten. Well, that would occur in the form of federal taxation under a new agency, or under the ATF, which would maybe the ATCF, alcohol, tobacco, cannabis, firearms, or maybe it's just the U.S. Cannabis Control Commission, or maybe it's part of the Space Force. Who fucking knows with Trump? Hard to say, but it would take a new federal agency or an add-on to a federal agency, a breakdown of old criminal code that's federal, and putting the sale of recreational cannabis. Would it be OTC cannabis and not supplement? And that's, who knows? I don't know. But whatever that ends up being, it's going to be under the scrutiny of this new agency that regulates the interstate trade of cannabis. And so, and I guess I put that wrong. I think there are actually two pathways. One is that cannabis is treated like a supplement, and the states are kind of free to do what they want, and the feds may or may not come in with a federal taxation that would open up interstate commerce and federal taxes on cannabis. It could also go this other way, where it goes as, it's like an OTC. Like, would cannabis be an OTC? I think that would still be a drug, and you'd still be making claims about it. So I think that pathway is off, but maybe there's like this weird OTC place where they try to regulatory capture and shove it all into pharmacies. It seems unlikely to me. I see pharmaceutical happening, supplements being the way that cannabis is treated, and then eventually an agency being formed that collects taxes and opens up for federal trade across state lines. That process, from now to rescheduling, to federal commission being formed, to actual laws being written, passed through Congress to regulate and tax cannabis, how long do you think that takes? You think it's I don't think it's even done by the end of Trump's term. Potentially, it's part of like the next president's first budget is, but we're looking at multiple years. And then from there, we're looking at maybe years and years and lots of court battles about, can I buy California cannabis and ship it to another state? Can I ship Michigan cannabis to Ohio? Does the Commerce Clause say that states can't interfere with lawful federal business? And so if I want to ship my cannabis from one place to another, just like corn, I should be able to. It's going to be very interesting to see when people have built empires on limited license markets in places like Connecticut, where a license for a grow is $3 million. You think those people want other states shipping cannabis in anytime soon? I don't think so. So there's a long, winding, unclear road ahead of us. It's hard to see exactly where it's going to lead. And honestly, I'll give you some percents. This is just me betting here. The percent chance that we actually see rescheduling, I'm still going to give it 50-50, maybe 60-40. I think it'll happen. I think there's maybe a slightly higher likelihood that it does happen. But remember, we still are going to face legal challenges. There's going to be lawsuits that fight this. It's still going to have to go through some level of scrutiny within the government, hearings. There is a process for rescheduling. And Trump just saying reschedule isn't that process. And then beyond there, we're looking at years, multiple years for sure, to form an agency, to pass the tax code through Congress, and to build it all out. So it's actually, I don't know. I mean, if we were in communist China, I think that could get done like that under a year. In the US under Trump, maybe we can get it done by the end of his term. Maybe we do see a cannabis commission. I don't know. This is what's making people worried. Why aren't we fully legalizing cannabis? If the feds aren't going to interfere with states' rights, why not just legalize it? And there's two answers. One is who's ever in Trump's ear, maybe it's Trulieve, who knows? Maybe it's Mark Sabaya, who knows? They may have some interest in freeing themselves from 280E burden, but maintaining a state segmented infrastructure. I think this is the most likely. It's the simplest outcome, right? If you've got operations in 10 states, 12 states, 15 states, and some of them are like medical markets in like Florida, Texas, and Georgia. You got Connecticut wrapped up. You've got Illinois, right? You got a nice defensible limited license market. You're printing cash. You're selling vapes for $80 that you grew, you processed, and you're selling in your own stores. You don't want it to go federally legal. You don't want that kind of competition. You don't want Altria competing with you. No, you just want the tax man off your back. And so reschedule, but let's keep this murky for a while until we can own more of the market, till we're in a place where Altria would buy us. And that's the most, I don't see it as like, let's reschedule to Schedule 3, and then we're going to forcefully shut down all dispensaries, all processors, all grows across the country, and say if you don't get a license that is somewhat hard to get, that like someone like me wouldn't be able to get, then we're going to shut them all down. And these states operating these markets are non-compliant. The states are breaking the laws too. And we're going to come after them. This is the federal government. I don't think that's going to happen. There's too much tax money. The state markets are too strong. And the repercussions of that are like, everybody goes black market. It's not like everyone is just going to start buying pills from Pfizer that aren't even on the market yet. You could make the argument that long term, this sets the stage for regulatory capture. And I think you could say that, yeah, like, um, it, the question is like, am I really kept out of the tobacco market? Like, if I wanted to go start a tobacco farm, that was my thing. I wanted to retire from my current business with no money and start a tobacco farm. Would I be able to pretty easily get the licenses to do that? Now, if I wanted to take that tobacco and roll it into cigarettes and sell it myself, could I set all that up? And if I wanted to open a store, sell tobacco, could I do all that? The answer, I believe, is yes. I know I could get a tobacco license to sell tobacco. I'm pretty sure I could produce it. I could figure that out. Now, is the pathway going to be so much harder than tobacco that it equates to regulatory capture, where people who already are doing business in cannabis can't get those licenses and pay federal taxes? Or are they just going to, they're somehow going to say this whole recreational market, this whole medical market too, it's all invalid. You all have to stop. January 1st, 2026. Everybody stop. This is illegal. You can only get weed through pharmacies. I just don't buy it, guys. It's a lot of doom and gloom. The feds are busy enough punishing minorities. And maybe weed smokers are the next minority they're going to punish. I just think the most likely thing is that Trump has someone in his ear who's going to make a bunch of money not having this federal burden and makes money by having the states continue to be segmented. Some of that money is going to end up in Trump's pocket, and here we are, folks. Simplest answer is a straight line. That's not the saying. Shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and the simplest answer is almost certainly the most obvious one, or the correct answer is the simplest one. Not a big phrase guy. Anyway, this was another episode of Seznate. Pretty much off the cuff here. Happy rescheduling order day. Fuck the tax man. I don't fucking know, man. See you next time.